Welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Tuesday's Thoughts. So happy that you took the time out to check in because tonight's topic is a seat at the table. Take a minute, as usual, to just go ahead and like and share, subscribe, comment, and tag someone, get them in on the thought for this evening. So tonight, I want to kind of switch things up. I want to flip the script a little bit because I'd like to start by taking you to. We're going to anchor the thought in the text first. So I want to share about the story of a man who's found in the book of 2 Samuel. I actually want to look at it specifically in 2 Samuel chapter 4, and I'm going to look at the 4th verse. And the person that I want to highlight tonight is a man by the name of Mephibosheth. So a long story short, and please, I always encourage you, especially those of you who may not necessarily be as familiar with the scriptures, I always encourage you to go back and read for yourself. But I'll just give you the Coles Notes version and kind of highlight some key features before I get to the crux of my thought. But we're talking about Mephibosheth, who was the grandson of the first king of the children of Israel, Saul, whose name was Saul. And I'll just read because I think 2 Samuel chapter 4 and verse 4 captures in a nutshell what it is that we're going to be talking about. And it says, Saul's son Jonathan had a son named Mephibosheth, who was crippled as a child. He was 5 years old when the report came from Jezreel that Saul and Jonathan had been killed in battle. When the child's nurse heard the news, she picked him up and fled. But as she hurried away, she dropped him, and he became crippled. So there you have it, Mephibosheth's story in a nutshell. Devastating news came back to the house, right? He was among royalty. He grew up in the king's house, so to speak. And the king and his heir was now dead. So, of course, his nurse, this is the person who had responsibility, who was supposed to be caring for him, who was supposed to, be meeting his needs as a young child, in her haste and with all of her good intentions, trying to escape what might come to the house of Saul, she picked him up, but she dropped him. And as a result of the fall, he became crippled, the Bible tells us. And I want to focus and really talk to some of us who, at some point in our lives, in your life, you may have been dropped, so to speak. And it could have been by someone you loved, somebody who was responsible for you, somebody who you looked up to, somebody who you put your trust in. May or may not have been an incident that occurred as a child, but at any point in time throughout your life, you, for all intents and purposes, you were dropped by someone. And as a result of that fall, as a result of the devastation, as a result of whatever it was that hit you, that thing that came out of nowhere, and perhaps had nothing to do with you, was through no fault of your own, you now have a lasting, in his case, he was crippled. You now have a lasting detriment that came to you, and you're still living with the result of the fall. I want to encourage someone tonight. I want to encourage you. It doesn't matter where you find yourself. It doesn't matter who may have dropped you. And I don't want for a moment to minimize that. I want to encourage you through the life of Mephibosheth, because if you fast forward and you can, as I said, do your homework and you can find it in the text, you'll see that the reigning king who came after King Saul, greatest king of Israel, King David, as the years passed on, when Mephibosheth became a man, I'm just going to call him Meph, David reconnected with him. Now, of course, you know the story well, that David and his father Jonathan were very close. And when it came to David's attention that one of his children were still alive, David said, come, You are now going to stay with me. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to see to all your needs. In fact, I'm giving you a seat at my table. I want you to be at my dinner table. From this day forward, you get a seat at the king's table. I want to talk to someone who may have found themselves in a situation that life has had you dropped. But now here you are, so many years later, so many months later, however long it has been. I need you to look around. I need you to recognize that you are now no longer in that place that you were before. You now have a seat at the king's table. There is something, there is someone, there are resources, there are opportunities, there are things that may have come your way. But unfortunately, because you're still stuck in the fact that, well, my nurse dropped me. Think about it. We're told that he was crippled. It's quite possible, it's quite likely that he had a limp. And so all his life, he may have spent thinking, I'm just a nobody. Look, see, I can't do much. I can't walk straight. I can't walk properly, couldn't run, can't do any of these things because somebody dropped me. And the result of that is I'm crippled. I can't do much. But I want to encourage someone. Don't you allow whatever circumstance afflicted you in the past to keep you from seeing where you are now. You might be in a palace. You might, and obviously it might not be a physical and a literal thing, but you might be surrounded by people and individuals whose God has strategically assigned in your life to help boost you and to help build you up, or vice versa. You might be in a space where God has said, I want your purpose to shine because I want people to see that, yes, though you may have had this horrible accident, this thing that was outside of your control, you're shining, you're still living, you're still talking about it, you're still being exactly who he called you to be. Don't allow the shame, and it's so interesting because I looked up the name, his name, Mephibosheth, I'm not gonna say it anymore. You know what it is, okay? The name actually means to break from, or to be at an end, to put an end to shame, to break from shame. You don't have to feel and live in the shame of whatever it is that caused you to now have that limp. Look around, absorb, soak up your environment, the space that you're in. You're at a king's table. Chances are that's quite a spread. Access the resources that are at your disposal. Connect with the people that are around you, the people of influence, and continue to build. As I said, it may have been, when we think about a nurse, and that's their very vocation, it's to be nurturing, it's to care for, right? It's to protect, it's to build up, and so on. But circumstances had it so that in her well-intention, she ended up dropping him. And so that might be the case. Maybe there's some people that you need to forgive. Maybe there's some healing that you need to do so that you can then see clearly where you are now. I encourage you, recognize that you have a seat at the table. Mephibosheth, as I say, you can read it for yourself. He maintained the stigma, right? Oh, I'm not worthy. He walked in a frame of mind of unworthiness, so to speak. And even with David, trying to pull him up and say, hey, you stay with me. There was that sense, there was always that sense in the back of his mind. This isn't how, the heir of a kingdom. My father was a king. My grandfather, rather, was a king. Life shouldn't have turned out that way. And so I want to encourage you. Somebody may be thinking that life was not supposed to turn out this way. But no matter where you find yourself, no matter what the fall, no matter who may have dropped you, I want to encourage you, heal. Now's the time to heal. Don't live in that moment, but live in your present, where you are now. Remember that you are sitting at the king's table. As always, it is my prayer for you that the peace of God will be with you. Yes, it's a short thought tonight, but I want you to go and think about that. I pray that it will be of help to someone that you will walk in the purpose that God has designed for you to walk as you consider where you are now, not where you have been, but where you are now. Thanks so much for tuning in, and may the peace of God be with you. God bless you. Until next time.